Hello, everyone, and welcome back to BIRDCAST, the podcast where we dive deep into the world of birds. So, today we're focusing on a bird that fills the summer sky with chatter and acrobatic flight, the purple martin, Progne subis. They're small, dark swallows, sleek, fast, and endlessly sociable. If you've ever stood in a field and heard a chorus of bubbly, metallic chirps overhead, that might have been a colony of martins circling their nesting gourds. Purple martins are more than just a species. They're a long-running partnership between birds and people. Adult male purple martins are glossy blue-black. It's that kind of iridescent color that shifts from deep navy to purple depending on the light. Females and younger birds are paler, with grayish bellies and lighter throats. At about 20 centimeters long, or 8 inches, they're the largest swallow in North America. They have long, pointed wings and a slightly forked tail, built for flight. And flight really is their whole life. Purple martins are aerial specialists. They feed entirely on flying insects like dragonflies, beetles, wasps, even butterflies, catching them mid-air at speeds that can exceed 40 miles per hour. They drink on the wing too, swooping low over ponds or lakes to skim the surface with their bills. Some researchers describe them as airborne fishers because they never really need to land except for rest or tend to their nests. When you watch a group of martins, you can see their agility in motion, darting, looping, and diving through the air like a synchronized swarm. It's one of the best aerial displays in the bird world. Okay, purple martins breed across most of the eastern and central United States, southern Canada, and parts of the West. But every fall, they make an incredible journey all the way to South America, especially Brazil, Bolivia, and the Amazon basin. Their migration can cover up to 8,000 kilometers one way. Satellite tracking studies, like those published in the Wilson Journal of Ornithology and the Auk, have followed martins across the Gulf of Mexico, where some individuals fly non-stop for over 700 kilometers. That's roughly the distance from New Orleans to the Yucatan Peninsula over open water. And they do it at night. That's right, these daytime insect hunters migrate under the stars, guided by celestial cues and magnetic fields. By early spring, purple martins begin returning north, usually following warm fronts that bring insect swarms. In many areas, their return is celebrated as one of the first real signs of spring. Purple martins are a perfect example of a species that has shifted from wild to human-centered nesting. Historically, they nested in old woodpecker holes, tree cavities, and natural gourds. But over centuries, especially east of the Rockies, they've become almost entirely dependent on human-made housing. The classic white martin houses or hanging gourd clusters you see on poles near fields and homes. This relationship goes back long before modern birders. Native American tribes, particularly in the southeast, hung hollowed gourds to attract martins because they consumed insects and acted as natural pest control. Now, most martins east of the Rockies will only nest in human-provided housing. Studies by the Purple Martin Conservation Association, PMCA, show that over 90% of nesting martins in the eastern U.S. occupy these structures. The same studies suggest that without continued human support, populations in those regions would collapse. This makes purple martins an unusual case in wildlife conservation, a wild species whose survival depends on a long-standing partnership with people. Purple martins are colonial nesters, meaning they breed in large groups. A single martin house might host 10 to 20 pairs, and larger colonies can exceed 100 birds. They're socially monogamous. One male and one female form a pair for the breeding season, sharing territory and parenting duties. But genetically, things are a little more complicated. DNA analysis has shown that extra pair matings are common, adding an interesting twist to their colony dynamics. Nests are built from twigs, straw, and mud, lined with green leaves, usually oak or maple, thought to keep the nest fresh and cool. Females lay between 4 and 6 eggs, which hatch after about 2 weeks. The chicks are fed entirely on flying insects, mostly dragonflies, which parents carry back in their throats, sometimes holding up to 60 insects at once. Fledging happens at around 26 to 32 days after hatching, and once the chicks leave the nest, they begin joining large pre-migratory roosts. These roosts are one of the most spectacular sights in the bird world. In late summer, before heading south, thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands, of purple martins gather at communal roost sites, often in urban areas or along coastlines. Infrared radar studies, such as those from the U.S. Geological Survey and the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, have documented roosts so large they appear as biological blooms on weather radar. One famous site in Lake Murray, South Carolina, has hosted 700,000 birds in a single season. At sunset, they spiral down into reed beds or urban trees by the tens of thousands, filling the sky like smoke. Then, just before dawn, they erupt again, an enormous cloud of wings heading in every direction to feed. Purple martins are members of the swallow family, Hirundinidae, built for flight efficiency. Their wings have a high aspect ratio, long and narrow, allowing sustained flight with minimal energy use. Their lightweight skeleton and powerful pectoral muscles make them remarkably agile. They can change direction in milliseconds, using tail flicks and wing adjustments that are barely perceptible to the human eye. Their eyes are positioned to maximize binocular vision during pursuit, crucial when hunting insects that can also dodge and weave midair. In studies of foraging efficiency, martins were shown to capture hundreds of insects per hour during peak activity periods, contributing significantly to local insect population control. Purple martins face multiple challenges: habitat loss, climate change, and competition from invasive species like European starlings and house sparrows, which aggressively take over nesting cavities. Without active management, these competitors can eliminate martin colonies within a few seasons. That's why martin landlords, the people who maintain housing, play such a vital conservation role. Organizations like the PMCA train volunteers to monitor nests, clean compartments, control invasive species, and report data. Thanks to that network, purple martins remain common in much of their range. Climate change also affects migration timing. Studies from the Condor Ornithological Applications show that martins are arriving earlier in spring and facing mismatches with insect availability in some regions. Long-term monitoring will help determine whether they can adapt to these shifting patterns. If you've ever spent time near a martin colony, you know their sound, a constant background of warbling and chattering. It's not loud, but it's lively. That sound defines summer in much of North America, especially in rural areas. The birds swoop around barns, porches, and fields, looping through the air in tight groups, chasing invisible clouds of insects. It's hard not to smile watching them. There's something joyful about their energy, even though, biologically speaking, it's all business: fuel, reproduction, migration, and survival. Still, they seem to enjoy being alive. The purple martin, Progne subis, isn't just another swallow. It's a symbol of connection between humans and wildlife, between earth and sky, between seasons. They remind us that conservation isn't always about stepping back. Sometimes it's about leaning in and helping a species coexist with us. Every spring, when the martins return, it's like the clock resets. Migration complete. The sky repopulated with chatter and flight. It's proof that even small wings can travel continents and still find their way home to a backyard pool full of white gourds. The purple martin, the largest swallow in North America, is a master of flight and a survivor of change. It thrives on our porches, in our fields, and in our care. A species whose story is written across hemispheres and in the open sky. Thank you so much for listening to BIRDCAST. Until next time, keep your eyes on the evening sky. When the light fades and the martins begin their acrobatics, you'll see one of the purest expressions of life and motion. Bye.